what the hell's that thing called? Like in the TCN server, because we got a couple people from Calgary there. We got a couple people from University of Alberta as well. So you might see a couple of them around.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen them in the early career chat.
Oh, okay, okay, that's awesome. Who do you know specifically?
Not specifically. I just saw that they were talking
Oh,
about
okay, okay, okay.
Calgary-based companies, and I was just reading up on that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, there's definitely yeah, there's definitely a lot of because the server used to be started and focused on the Vancouver area, right?
Yeah.
But we have a lot of people from Alberta as well. Actually, Eric was one of the guys who is from Alberta in the past
Oh,
too.
really?
So yeah, yeah. So he's kind
Okay.
of familiar with that area. I mean, I don't really he doesn't talk about that too much, but I presume he's familiar with that kind of thing. So that's awesome.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you guys for expanding it outside of Vancouver.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, and I mean, hey, one of these days maybe we can do an event there or something. That'd be kind of fun, you know.
Yeah, that would be
Um,
amazing.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so let me just check the title. Motley Codes resume review. That's gonna happen after this one, obviously. Let me see. Uh, sign up, sign up in this. Okay, okay, cool. All right. Well, I mean, let's not stall. Let's not stall. Let's get right into it. So, I mean, first of all, welcome back. Welcome back. Happy to be doing this again with you. Um, and just for clarification, oh, by the way, is Python a language for you? Is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, good. Yeah, just double checking. Yeah, so as you know, this is going to be an hour long session. We're going to be doing 45 minutes to maybe 50 minutes or so of problem solving time, and then we'll go through feedback at the end. We're going to be targeting two problems today. Okay, so today
Mhm.
we're targeting two problems. As you indicated, new grad medium kind of area, so that's where we're going to be focusing on. Any other concerns before we begin? Otherwise, I mean, let's save some time. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Thank you.
Okay, great. And by the way, if you've seen these problems before, let me know. We can change it because obviously this is just a mock, so it's better you do something new, right? Okay.
Right, I agree.
Yeah. So the first problem I'm going to do is called merge intervals. Okay.
Okay.
So this is a problem where the input is going to be a list of integers.
Okay.
It's actually no, it's going to be a list of integers. Sorry, list of integers. Or if you're
Okay.
doing Python, call it list of pairs. Whatever you prefer, it's up to you. I don't care. Okay.
Okay.
And the first number in the pair is going to be the beginning, and the end. And second number is going to be the end of the interval.
Okay.
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 And you are to return a list of pairs of integers, which merges the intervals that overlap, such that the resulting array of pairs is a minimum set of pairs that covers the entire input range of intervals.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I could just start and go right into clarifying questions.
Yeah.
So I guess before that, so just to make sure, you said the input would be a list of ints, right? Or this inner list of just pairs.
It's a list of yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so in Python you
Okay.
can either use a tuple, a two, or you can use a list. I don't care either way. It's up to you.
Okay. And then the output would just also be a list of int, but we just return the minimum number of intervals.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. So I guess moving on to some assumptions or clarifying questions. So can you assume that the list does indeed exist? Like, could we have an
Yes.
empty list
Yes.
essentially?
Yes. You can assume. That's right. You can assume that. Yeah.
The list exists. And then can we assume that every list element is always a pair of a start and an end, and the end is always after the start element?
No.
Okay. Okay, so all right. So that means we could have, for example, something like, I guess like 2, 1 potentially.
Yep. That's a valid range.
Okay. So would that mean that we just ignore this interval because it's, or like, because the end is after the start?
No, it's still a valid interval.
Okay, interesting. So I guess if we had this interval and then we had something like, 2 to 3, what would the merge interval look like? Just to make sure I understand.
Yeah. So it would. So you can write it either as 1 3 or 3 1.
Okay, okay, interesting. O- Okay, so okay. Um, let's see. And then can you assume that the start and the end are always positive, or could they potentially be negative values?
No, they could be negative. They could be any integer.
Okay, assume negative values into this. Let's see if there's anything else we should be aware of. Um, I think that's maybe it for now. So maybe I could just go through some example test cases to make sure I understand. So I guess like maybe something that's more so along the happy path. If we had something like um, this, would we just simply return 1 to 4?
Yep.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yep.
And then you said like for example, if we have something like 2, 1, and then I guess 2, 4, and then 4, 6, and maybe 7, 9. Would the output to this just be 1 to 6 and then 7 to 9?
Yep. That's a valid output.
Okay. Okay. So then maybe we could try to match this to an algorithm or an approach. Um, so let's see. So I'm thinking that we would probably have to do some sort of initial pre-processing before the algorithm. So maybe one thing we can do is we can go through each interval, and if the end is after the start, just swap them, because I think that might be helpful for the algorithm. So this could just become 1, 2. So if I just write that down, do some pre-processing, swap each interval if um, end is less than start. Okay, and then I guess um, after that, I think it might be helpful to sort them, kind of like what we have here. Um, so maybe what we can do next is we can just sort each interval by start, yeah, by the start point. And then I guess once we do that, then yeah, what we can do is we can just have like when we're at the first element, we can just have an initial interval starting at 1, for example, ending at 3. And then we look at the next one and check if this one starts before this one ends, then we would just update the end to the next value. Um, so like for example, in this case, this would become 1, 2, and then for example, 2 is less than or equal to 2, so then it becomes 1, 4, and then 4 is equal to 4, so then it would become 1, 6. 7 doesn't equal not a 6, so we would create a new interval, and then that would be 7, 9. So I guess we would sort by the start point, iterate through um, the intervals, and check if the end is less than or equal to, or sorry, yeah, the start is less than or equal to the is less than or equal to the start or to the end of the previous one, sorry, end of previous interval. If so, then we can just update um, the last interval endpoint, and then else create new interval. And then I guess just thinking of this from a time complexity and a space complexity, since we have to sort the list, it would be n, or sorry, n times log n, and then we're just iterating through it, both for the pre-processing and then for creating the output. So that would be n. So I guess that's not significant. And then the space complexity would be O of n, just because sorting has O of n space complexity in Python. Does that approach sound correct?
Yep. That sounds about. Yep.
Okay. Should I proceed with this approach, or should we try to think of an optimization?
No, that should be good to proceed. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just say here def merge intervals, which takes in, I guess, intervals. So we can assume the list exists, so we don't have to have any edge cases or guard clauses. So we can just get into it. So first we can just do the pre-processing. So we'll just say here for, I guess, interval in intervals. And I guess since we already have the O of n space, we could maybe just create a process intervals. I'll just say processed intervals, which equals an empty list. And then we can just say for interval and intervals, um, if, or we can just say, yes, start and end, start and equals the interval. And if end is greater than or equal to start, then we would just say processed intervals dot append the interval, and then otherwise we would just uh, append it the other way. So we can just say append and then list where it starts with the end and then with the start. So here we've just did some initial pre-processing to make sure that the intervals are as expected. So for example, for this input, it would just become 1 and 2. So once that's done, then we can sort the intervals by their start point. So I think in Python we can just say um, intervals dot sort, and by default, when there's a list of lists, it would just sort it by the first element, which is what we want.
Okay.
Um, and then once that's done, what we'd like to do is we would like to iterate through each interval and check if the start is less than or equal to the end of the previous interval. So I guess we would have that initial interval. So I'll just say here, um, merged intervals equals this, and we could just say merged intervals dot append, or sorry, I guess this should be process intervals over here. And then we would just get the first element of process intervals as the initial element. So we would just have this. Um, and then once that's done, we could just iterate through each of these or these process intervals and then append them to the merge intervals as per our logic here. So we can just do that here. So we'll just say here for I in range of 1. We don't need to go through the first element because we already have the merge intervals up to the length of processed intervals. And then for each one, you would want to compare to the, I guess, the most recent merge interval. So I can just maybe say start end equals processed intervals at index I. And then I could say here previous. So I guess since it's sorted by start, we don't need to care for the previous start. So we can just ignore that, which would equal the merged intervals at -1. Um, and then, yeah, that would have the previous start and end.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would just apply this logic. So check if the start, so we'll see if start is less than or equal to the previous end. If so, then we'll just say here merged intervals. Um, yeah, I guess merge intervals -1 equals. Um, so I guess actually we do need the previous end. So we'll just say previous, or I mean the previous start. So we'll just say equals the previous start, and then we would need to update the endpoint. So this would be applied in the case of something like this. So initially the merge interval would just be 1, 2, but we want to update this to 4 and leave the 1 as is. So here we leave the 1 as is, and to update it to 4, we would just say here equals to end. And I think that would be good. Um, or I guess maybe I should clarify, could we have an edge case like this where we have, for example, maybe 1, 4, and then I guess 2, 3? Like that could be a possible test case, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then just make sure the output for this would just be 1, 4, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so in that case, yeah, the start should be as is because it's sorted. Um, but then we should update the end not necessarily to this, but we would want to update it to the max between the existing end and the next end. I think I can just see here equals to the max of the existing end and the previous end. I think that's good. And then we can say here else. If so, then just create a new interval. So we can just say here merge intervals dot append, and then we would just append the um, start and end. And I think once we're done with this iteration, then you can just simply return merge intervals, and then this should have the most optimized merge intervals or the fewest intervals. Does this look right?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Can you? Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to talk about this problem? Is there any concerns about other edge cases?
Um, I think yeah, we covered the edge. We assumed the list exists, the and can be before the start, so we did this pre-process to account for that edge case.
Okay.
Uh, and then yeah, we assumed that the first interval could be bigger than the second one. I guess we didn't explicitly think about the positive or negative values. So maybe let's just make sure that that's as expected. So we'll just say here -1, -3, and then let's just say here um, -5 and -2. So I guess just to do a quick walkthrough, if we first pre-process it by switching them, then this would become -3, -1, and -2, or sorry, -5 and -2. And then after that, we would sort them. So when we sort them by the start, it would become -5 to -2. And the second element would become -3 to -1. So it would get swapped essentially. And then when we go through this process and we check, is the start of this less than or equal to the previous end, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
So then we just update the merge interval to -5 to -1, which I think is the expected output. So I think, yeah, it accounts for all test cases.
Cool.
Should
Yeah.
we go through a more detailed walkthrough or
No, I
do you
think that's
think?
fine. No, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So in that case, let's talk about the time and space. So I know you wrote that down already, but let's just confirm that and describe, like, go through and describe why you think that is the case.
Yeah, so I think we can just walk through it. So for this first step, the time complexity and the space complexity would be O of n, just because we do have that additional space with the process intervals. And then, of course, we need to iterate through intervals. Of course, we could modify the initial input, but then I think that would still be included in the time and space complexity. And then this is the bottleneck, so this would just be n times log n, because I think Python uses sort, which also has a space complexity of n. And then I guess since there's two elements in each list, we don't have to account for that in the big O notation. And then I think this entire iteration just iterates through those process intervals, which is as big as the initial input. So then this would also have a time complexity of O of n, and then I guess technically a space complexity of O of 1 because the output doesn't count. So I think overall, the overall time complexity would just be the bottleneck, which is n times log n for the time complexity, and the space complexity would just simply be O of n due to sorting it and also having this additional input to do some pre-processing.
Nope, that makes sense to me. No, I'm happy with that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let's move to the second problem.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so for this problem, it's called sorting integers by score. Okay,
Okay.
so you're given a list of integers,
Mm-hmm.
and you are to sort them by the score of the integer. Okay, now the
Okay.
score of integer is calculated as follows. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say we're calculating the score of x. If x
Mm-hmm.
is even, then you take x divided by 2. If x is odd,
Mm-hmm.
then you take x times 3 all plus 1.
Okay, so x times 3 plus 1.
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
And then the score of a number is the number of steps it takes to become equal to 1 following this process.
Sorry, could you say that one last time? The
Absolutely.
last.
The score of a number is equal
Hmm.
to the number of steps in this algorithm it takes to reach 1.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay, yeah, I think this is a more interesting problem, so maybe you could spend more time,
Yep.
I guess, with some clarifying questions. So just starting out with the input and output. So the input is just simply an uh, list of integers, and then would the output just be that list of integers but sorted?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and then I guess if we go through some assumptions slash clarifying questions. So I guess um, before even we do that, maybe we could just go through the example test cases first, just to make sure that I have a better understanding. So I guess we could have maybe, um, so can we assume that all the integers are positive, or could they be positive and negative?
For this problem, we'll assume they're all positive.
Okay, assume positive. Um, so then let's say we just have maybe the numbers like 3, 4, 7, 2, 4. And then could we also have duplicate values?
Yeah, you can have duplicate values, yeah.
Um, duplicates. So let's say we have this input. So just to make sure I understand, we want to apply the algorithm based on if the element, not the index, is even or odd, and then the score would be the number of steps it takes to reach one.
Yes, following that algorithm, yes.
Okay. Um,
Why don't you start by calculating the score of the number 3?
yeah, of course. So I think so 3 is odd, so we would say 3 times 3 plus 1, which equals 10. But every time we run this, wouldn't it never reach, I guess, 1?
No, it is guaranteed to reach 1.
Oh, I see. Okay, because now it becomes even. Okay, okay. So you don't apply the same algorithm. So then we divide it to 5,
You
and
should
then it
keep track,
becomes
so don't delete them, so you should keep track of them for the purpose of
okay.
counting
Yeah.
the steps.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so 3. So first 3 becomes 10, then it becomes 5, then it becomes 16, then it becomes 8, okay, then it becomes 2, then it becomes 1. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Um, I see. Okay, that's interesting. Um, okay, yeah, I guess now we could just go through the usual approach. So, just to make sure that does the list exist, or could it potentially be empty?
You can assume all inputs are good.
Okay, oh, no, input good. No input validation needed. Let's see here. Um, we can have positives, we can have duplicates. They're all integers. Um, and we can assume that there's always a solution. Always solution. Okay, so then I guess going through the example test cases, this would just produce an output of, so I guess, would this just be 7? Just because it takes 7 steps to get
Yes, that
to
would be 7, correct.
okay, 7, and then we would just have dot, 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 7. Okay, so maybe I could just do one more just to confirm my understanding. So for example, for 4, it would just become 2 and then 1, so I guess that would just be an easy 2. And then maybe with just one more. Um, for 7, I guess it would just become 22, 11, 34, 17, um, 54, 55, um, and then I guess,
That's
yeah, yeah.
166.
Okay, thank you. 166, and then this would just become 83, and then okay, yeah, this one might take a while. Okay,
Yeah, you can just assume it's large, yeah.
it is possible. Yeah, okay. Um, Interesting. So maybe you can just think of matching it to an approach or an algorithm. Um, let's see here. So I think with this, we might just have to brute force this, where we go through each element, apply the algorithm, and keep the track of the steps. And then since there's duplicates, maybe we could have some sort of memory or cache. Um, so I guess the brute force solution or the intuitive solution to me is just go to iterate through each element. Okay, thank you for that. Iterate through each element. Um, Calculate score for each element. If seen before, or just simply use caching. Simply use action. Um, yeah, and then I guess this would just be in. I guess we would have to go through every element, and we won't need additional space. We would just keep a track of each score with a individual variable. And if we assume that this is a constant, because I don't think this can be, or I guess maybe you can just say maybe n times k, where k is the maximum, I guess, sequence you calculate that score. Then yeah, this would have a time complexity of O of n times k and a space complexity of O of 1. Um, do you think this solution is appropriate, or do you think there might be a more optimized solution than just simply iterating through each element, calculating the score one by one, and then using caching for duplicates?
No, I think that's appropriate.
Okay, so I guess we could just go ahead with um, implementing it. Um, okay, so we can just say here def sort by score, which takes an input of nums. Um, and then let's see here. So I guess the first thing is just to iterate through each element and calculate the score. So we can just say here, um, and then I guess, yeah, at the end of it all, we can just sort the scores output. So actually that would, I guess, be n times k plus n times log n. So I guess here what we can do here is first just iterate through them. So we'll say for n in nums. Um, and then we could just maybe say here scores equals an empty list. And then we could just abstract the idea of how to get that score for now. So maybe you can just say scores dot append. We can maybe do that as a separate helper function. So get score for n. So I can just say here maybe um, uh, that gets for a certain number, and we can maybe just iterate, get that done later. And then I guess, yeah, once we have all the scores, or we would need cache in as well. So we could maybe just pass in, or we could maybe just say here scene equals empty dictionary initially, pass that here, and then we can just check if we had calculated it before already. Um, oh, sorry, that should go here. And then I guess at the end of it all, then we would just simply say scores dot sort and return scores. So I guess, yeah, the main meat of the problem is just implementing the get score. Is this looking correct so far?
Yeah, I like it so far.
Okay.
I will say though that make sure that, and I think you are doing this, but to clarify, you're sorting by score, but you're not sorting the score.
Oh, okay. So sorry, when you say sort and by score, does that not mean that we calculate the scores and then just sort them as is, or?
Well, you're not sorting the score; you're sorting by score. So, for example, in this case, 4 will come before 3, so your return would be
Oh, okay.
uh, 4, 4, 3, 3. Oh, you didn't do 2. Well, 2 would be first.
Right, okay. Okay, sort by score, not sort scores. Okay, that makes the problem a bit more interesting. Um, so I guess maybe I should just go back to clarify my approach before I further implement it. So yeah, brute force iterate to each element, calculate the score. Um, and then once we do that, so we would have to sort the score, or we'd have to, yes, sort the input nums based on the score. So I guess I think we can just simply have a tuple of um, score and the original num for each input. Um, I guess, or yeah, just for each element in nums, and then we can just use the default sorted method because it would sort by the score, um, and then use list comprehension to only return the num from the tuple. So I guess, is it possible for two elements of different value to have the same score using this formula?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, so in that case, can we return in any order, or do we have to return it by insertion order?
You will return it by the natural order of the original element.
Okay. Um, then I think what we can do then is we can just I think we can also track the index as well, and then it would just show the when you sort it, it would sort it by score. If there's a tie, then it would sort it by index. So the nums or the smaller index or that came first in their natural order would come earlier. So I think that would be handled by that, and then we could just use list comprehension to only get the num after it's sorted. Um, so I guess to implement that, once we create the scores, then what we can do is we can just say for score in scores, and then we can just maybe just call this answer equals an empty list. All right, we can just say here I score in enumerate scores. So then what we can do here is we can just say here and stop append the score first and then the index and then nums at that I. Then we can just sort scores. So we'll just say and dot sort. And then we can just say here return. Um, so I guess return the num for, I guess, the score in index and num in ants. Does that look correct?
Yeah, I want to clarify the natural order. By natural order, I mean the natural, like the comparative order of two numbers, and not the insertion order.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I should have clarified that. Okay, that makes sense. So in that case, we don't even need the I. So we could just use it as nums and then just simply um, have that, and then that should be good. Um, and then just append this as a tuple. Does that look correct?
I want to so yeah, that looks better. I want to clarify the sort method. Does it automatically tie break using the second element?
I believe it does, yeah.
Okay.
Um, okay. I guess we could just say confirm maybe by running it later. So now we could maybe focus on get score. Um, so let's see here. For a number, we'll just first maybe check if n in scene return scene n. So if we've seen it before, then just simply return that in the case of duplicates. Otherwise, we can maybe just return the score for that. So I guess we could do this iteratively or recursively. Um, Maybe I could just do it recursively because I think it might make more sense. Yeah, so I'll just say here if I guess n equals 1, return 0, um, just because, yeah, I guess, for example, if we have the number 1, then the score would just simply be 0. Otherwise, we'll just say here if n modulus 2 equals 0. So if it's even, then I think the formula was just divided by 2. So we'll just say here return 1 plus um, get score, um, or I guess we would have to update it to scene first. So maybe we can just say here, um, let's see. Yeah, I think we can just say here maybe ans equals 0, and then we'll just say the answer equals get score and divided by 2, um, and pass scene, and then we can just say here else ans equals get score, and I think it was and times 3 plus 1 scene, and then you can just say return, or we can first store it in the memo object. So we'll just say scene of n equals n's, and then return n's. Um, so I guess, for example, if we have 1, then it'll just return 0. If we have 2, then it'll return 1 plus 0. So then we'll just return 1. If we have something like, I guess, 4, for example, that would return 1 plus. So I guess maybe I could just write this down just to make sure that this function works as expected with a quick simple walkthrough. So let's say we have the input 4. Then it would just simply return 1 plus get score 2, which would return, I guess, 2 would return 1 plus get score um, 1. And then I guess get score 1 would just return 1. So this would return 1. And it would also store 2 in the AND, so we don't have to compute them as frequently. And then this would just have 2. Or sorry, yeah, this was 0. Sorry, this was 0. So then this becomes 1, and then this returns 2, which is expected. We would append the scores. We would sort them by their natural order, and then return them. I think this should be good. Does this look good? Should we go through a walkthrough?
How about you try an odd case?
Okay, yeah, let's try an odd case. So let's try a shorter odd case. So I think 3 was a shorter odd case. Or actually, maybe let me just do something. Yeah, let me just choose 5, I guess. So I'll just choose 5. So let's just say 5 equals. Oh, sorry. Okay, this should also be 1 plus. Okay, thank you for that. So this would just become 1 plus get score of 16, which would equal. So then 16 would return 1 plus get score of 8, and then we could just maybe duplicate this. So this is 8, this is 4, this is 2, and then this would just simply be 4, 2, 1. So just divide those each by 2. So then this would simply return 0. So then this would return 1. This would return 2. And then this would return 3. This would return 4. And then it would return 5 in total, which I think is expected. So I think that would work in that case too.
Okay. Yep.
Should we walk through the entire algorithm or run with code with an example test case?
Yeah. Let's do an example test case on this one. Yeah.
Okay, just like via walkthrough or like just via code test case?
Oh wait, no. I just want to do a walkthrough. Yeah, we'll do a walkthrough.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we can just review the algorithm. So I guess we could just use this input here since we have it populated. Um, so I think we said the answer should be this. So I guess for this, what we can do is we'll just say expected. And then you can just go with the walkthrough. So with the walkthrough first, we would go element by element. So this is scores, and it would calculate them one by one. So I guess we could. Do you want me to walk through the get score again for each one of them, or can we just
No, we
trust
can
that it
we
works?
can assume that. No, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So I think then we said 3 would return 6. So I'll just say here that this equals 6, 2, um, 7 returns 8. That would be 8, 3, 6, 9, 12, 16. I think it's approximately 16. 16, 1. This would be 2 again. This would be 6 again. So then once we do that, we update and. So and would just equal 6 and 3, um, 2 and 4, um, 16 and 7, and then another 2 and, sorry, oh, 1 and 2 first. 1 and 2, another 2 and 4, and then another 6 and 3. And then when we sort it, I believe first it looks at the initial one and sorts it in ascending order. So for example, ants will now become, after this, the smallest one is 1, and there's no tiebreaker to consider, so we'll just append 1 and 2. Then after that, um, I guess, yeah, I guess there's no tiebreakers in this case, so then it would just be as expected. So 2 and 4, and then 2 and 4, and then um, 6 and 3, and then 16 and 7, which in this case would just return. So return would just simply equal. We would just get the second element for each, so we just get 2, 4, 4, 3. I guess I missed a 3 there, and then 7. Um, I can just add that. And I guess, yeah, in the case of a tiebreaker, I do believe that it sorts it by ascending order by first looking at the first element.
Hmm.
If there's a tiebreaker, then it sorts the second element by ascending order. It's kind of like a string comparison, where it
Yep.
sorts it by the first character and then the second character. So I
That's
think,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
this would
we
work.
can assume that that's not an issue. We can assume that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Time and space, please.
Yeah, so I guess the time complexity is does need to be revised, and same thing with the space complexity. Um, so the time complexity would definitely be of n times some factors. I think the bottleneck is definitely this. Um,
Okay.
I think the sort would just be n times log n plus n times um, something. So for this one, I'm not exactly sure how to quantify it by its time complexity. It seems like I'm sure there's probably some sort of proof that we could calculate to find the exact time complexity of this with the respect to the individual element. Um, but I'm not sure how to calculate that or how to cap that. We are using scene, so for example, if we calculate, um, if we calculate, like for example, we calculated 8421 here, so then we wouldn't have to calculate 8421 here. So that is an optimization we made with using a memo object.
Hmm.
But I'm not exactly sure how we would um, quantify this in terms of time complexity. Do you maybe have any hints or any
Yeah, you
nudges?
can continue to assume that it's k.
Okay, so we'll just assume it's k then. So then I think this would just be n times k. Um, so I think we would include both because we don't know which one's bigger. And then the space complexity would be of n to sort. And then since we're using recursion here, this could have a recursion, a depth stack or a call stack of up to k. So then I guess this would also be of n plus k.
Okay.
So I think the revised time complexity would just be of n times log n plus uh, n times k, and the space complexity would actually be of n plus k. Since we're using recursion, I think if we use iteration, then we could have just optimized this to be just O of n.
Okay.
Does that
Um,
sound correct?
that sounds about right. Do you want to make the optimization then?
Yeah, of course. Okay, let's see here. So I guess we just have to update this bit. So we'll just say here, um, let's see, we'll just say here while n does not equal 1. Oh, sorry. N does not equal 1. Keep running this. So we would just say here simply if n modulus 2 equals 0, then we'll just say here um, and plus equals 1, and then n equals n divided by 2. Uh, and then you can just say here else, or I guess we can just add regardless, and then you can just say here n equals n times 3 plus 1, and I think that should be good. Um, I guess we would want to update scene of n every time, so we'll just say here maybe scene of n equals ants, and then we can just say here, yeah, I think that would be good. I don't think in the sequence we would see the same value again, so that would just be caught by here if we saw it in a previous element, and then we would just add it here for each element as is. Um,
Okay.
and then yeah, I think that should work. Should we do a walkthrough or?
No, that's fine. And what would the new time? Sorry, space and time, I guess, would be for this function.
So the space would definitely be optimized and become of n, and I think the time complexity would stay as is because instead of using recursion, we still the while loop would still take up to k times.
Okay. No, that makes sense to me. Okay. Any
But,
other concerns about this problem? Otherwise, we'll call it here.
yeah, is this the approach that you would have gone to, or is there like a more optimized or like mathematical approach for maybe get score or for the sorted? Because I guess in
We can
Python,
talk about the details of that after in the review.
okay,
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, you kind of breezed through the two problems today. The first one was definitely an easy problem. The second one,
mhm,
I'd say, was a pretty normal medium level problem.
okay.
How do you feel about either problem in terms of the difficulty, in terms of your approach, the confidence in your
Um,
solution?
I think I was definitely more confident in the first problem. I think the first problem was I think both problems were definitely more intuitive. Like you didn't have to like know like some like obscure Dijkstra's algorithm or something like that. They were just more like intuitive or maybe non-LeetCode style problems. So I think I was quite satisfied with my first one because I think I had a strong understanding. I just missed that a few edge cases I think with the like the previous end being before the max or before the current end. So then we accounted for that mid algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think the second one I definitely had some hiccups with the clarification. I should have definitely clarified the natural order. I think I just assumed that natural order meant insertion order, but you did say no, not insertion order, but natural order. So I should have, yeah, just I guess made sure to pay
Yeah.
attention there and caught that earlier rather than later. Um, and then yeah, I think yeah, it was just that maybe I didn't clarify as well or communicate as well in the second problem as compared to the first problem because it was maybe less straightforward than the first problem.
Yeah. No, I think that's a pretty overall pretty accurate assessment of what's going on.
Hmm.
You're right in that both these problems were more on the intuitive side.
Hmm.
But that is actually one of those things where some people will struggle with. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is that a lot of people who I wouldn't say overstudy, but focus too much on, for example, school algorithms and such, um,
Hmm.
they might lack intuition because it's not a kind of problem that is common on LeetCode and these kind of platforms.
Right. Okay.
So so these are valid problems that can't be asked, right? So that's what I'm getting at.
Hmm. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I also agree that. So first of all, the first problem was definitely felt easy after I asked it. It seemed like you were immediately on the right track there. And I
Hmm.
mean that's not our problem, of course. But I didn't want to spend much time on it, so I think one kind of high level improvement that could have been made there really was if you had more earlier asked what level of fidelity we're going for, right? So for example, if you had asked, do you want to walk through the initial examples over here? I would have said probably not. We can just skip that.
Okay.
If you had asked that kind of stuff, we would have maybe saved a bit more time on that, and we could have done some more follow ups on the second question.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's like a high level strategy kind of question for like feedback for you, I guess.
Okay.
But the approach I think overall was still fine. And I know still using Empire framework. I would say overall, don't stay married to it. Right. I think it's a good framework, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But
Hmm.
when you have a good grasp of the problem, you want to see if you can short circuit any steps. Save some
All
time.
right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. That makes sense. So
Yeah,
try.
details like for example, forgetting as long as like the detail about like the end not being actually greater. I mean, those are the things that if you as long as you self catch them, that's fine.
Hmm.
It's only if the interviewer were to give you a sample input that exhibits the bug, then it would be a bit of a problem. But if you have to self
All
catch
right.
it, then it's totally fine.
All right. Okay.
And I also then this might be like an attitude or some background here as well, which is that you know it is true that it still is linear space even if you have an extra array. But generally
Hmm.
speaking, you should. I mean, it's okay to acknowledge it, but generally speaking, you should ask, like, hey, I know if I make this extra array, it's still going to be the same complexity, but would that be okay, or do you still want me to keep it as optimal as possible? And the
All
reason
right.
that's the case is because um, it's actually two things. First of all, is that yes, the sorting algorithm in Python, which is power sort, yeah, it technically is O in. But
Hmm.
for example, that might not be the case if, for example, it knows it's well primitives or knows it can sort based on the first index, which is a primitive, which it can use
Right.
quicksort, which can be log in for some cases.
Right.
right? So
Right.
depending on what your interviewer is trying to dock your marks on, that could be considered wrong. So that's the first thing, right?
Right. Okay.
But the second thing is just that it is like this is correct analysis, but just because it's going to be Owen anyways doesn't mean that you should just be lazy about it. And so
Right. Okay.
that's something that people might care a bit more about because they still want it because this is still objectively less optimal than it would be otherwise.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's something that which you at least want to check up on before you just make those assumptions.
Right. Okay. So how would I process them without the additional array? Would I just modify the input directly and that wouldn't affect the space complexity or?
You would modify the index in place, or in their sort you would put a key with a lambda that finds the minimum of the two.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Um, this is a bit of a nitpick, but I want to point it out because I think this is important, which is that over here you said sort each interval by start point. Now you technically did already swap the intervals,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a terminology thing, and I say this is a terminology thing because of what I said as a problem description, which is what you clarified, and that is the start of an interval doesn't have to be the lower part of the interval, right? And so even though
Okay.
at this point that is technically true because you pre-processed it, you should be more
Mm-hmm.
precise in the language, right? So for
Right.
example, you should say sort by the lower value of the interval instead of the start value
Right.
interval.
Okay.
Most people won't care about that, and I mean you were quite precise with the rest of the problem, so I don't think that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
With your speech overall, but that could be something to look out for. Like one thing, well, like it's just one of those things to improve. You know what I mean? So
Right. Of course. That
you could
does make
definitely look
sense.
into that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's all the feedback for the first problem. I don't think there's anything to talk about here otherwise. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so question two. So I mean, obviously you weren't familiar with what was going on here. This scoring function is known as a callouts conjecture, and there's no proof that this is actually always true. But the
Interesting.
problem is that that's not the problem, right? The problem is that that's not the problem. The problem is this is actually a very very simple implementation problem, and actually
Mhm.
most of the complexity comes from your analysis of what is going on here.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so first of all, your implementation is fine. There's no comments there. Obviously, there's a bit of a hiccup with how you were interpreting the sort criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, as a general note for you in the future, you definitely want to clear that up, right? Clear up
Mm-hmm.
like what is it like? Don't start on these problems without being very clear on what's going on. And I mean,
Right.
of course, you did write out I think over here I think you wrote out the approach about how you were going to sort it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and that's good. That's something good to keep doing. But just be
Mm-hmm.
aware that sometimes that's not going to be clear enough for the interviewer to step in and tell you, hey, your actually approach is going to be wrong in this case.
Right.
So
Okay.
sample examples, for example, one thing you notice is that you never actually wrote out the sorted list for this,
Okay.
right? So that was not caught. So that's something that the interviewer wouldn't have been able to help you on.
Right. Okay. That does make sense. Thank you.
Okay, so that's about that. Yeah, a bit of terminology mix up with the natural order versus insertion order. That's not a big deal. Obviously, if you're not sure, just clarify that, right? That's just how it is for all terminology that you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Initial solution with the cache was very good. I would say generally in Python, at this level where you're using, we are making assumptions about the sort order. If you can
Mm-hmm.
use those comprehensions correctly, which you are, that's great to see. You should
Mm-hmm.
just be using the LRU cache for these kind of
Right.
memoization problems.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
that's not going to be like it's one of those things where you should, if you're not comfortable with, because you feel like the problem leans too heavily on memoization, you can definitely ask, hey, am I allowed to use these annotations?
Right.
Um,
Okay.
More often than not, that's something that, their answer to that question is going to tell you a lot about what they're looking for in the problem, right? So, for
Right.
example, if they're telling you, "Hey, yeah, you can use it," then probably the implementation of score is not the focus, right? While if they're telling
Okay.
you, "Hey, you can't use it," then perhaps that is going to be a focus, right?
Right.
So
Okay. That
actually, you
does
can
make.
use that to your own benefit by getting some information about the problem.
Right. Okay. That does make sense. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Cool. And then the iterative solution is also good to point out there. I think that's something which you should, if you're perceptive, that's something which you would be expected to ask up front
Right.
if
Okay.
you should be preferring iterative or recursive solution for the score.
Okay. That does make sense.
Okay. Otherwise, I think only thing I wanted to clarify on the second problem is about the time and space complexity. Okay, so um, the only guarantee that's been given for the problem is
Mm-hmm.
that for any number, the score is guaranteed to exist. right? It will
Mm-hmm.
terminate. That's the only guarantee that's given. Now, the thing
Mm-hmm.
that you weren't given and you wouldn't be really expected to find for this kind of level problem is the correlation there.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally a weak correlation where the cost is proportional to the size of the number,
Oh, okay.
which is unique in what we typically say because and you should notice that from obviously if it's a power two it's gonna sorry not power if it's actually yeah if it's a power two it's always gonna
Mm-hmm.
end. That's very trivial. It's very trivial to prove. But
Mm-hmm.
also the larger the power of two, the more steps it takes. So the
Right.
correlation is that obviously the larger the number, the more steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the thing to notice there really is that we store numbers in computers in like 32 or 64 bits, or in Python it's unlimited technically, right? But
Right.
like we store numbers in bits, and we typically don't frame complexity in terms of the size of the number, right? Like if you're
Right.
trying to say, if for example we're saying, hey, is the time complexity of sorting a list of small numbers, let's say a list of 10 small numbers, bigger or smaller than sorting a list of 10 big numbers? Well, for all intents and purposes, we assume them to be equal in
Right.
time
That does make
complexity. But actually, they're not equal in time complexity. It does take more cycles to compute comparisons between larger numbers,
right.
right? And so so that's one of those things which is different because in this case the complexity will not depend on just how many numbers, but actually the size of the number, which is typically not captured. So
Right.
this is something which you I would encourage you to maybe like not study too seriously, but like look into and think about critically because this is one of those
Right.
intuitive kind of problems where if you're not framing the variables, like for example k, if you're not framing the variables here in terms of the size of the number, then you're not going to capture it correctly,
Right. Okay.
right? So that's a very very I'd say a sneaky kind of a note here for you to be aware of.
Right. Okay. That does make sense.
um, Yeah, that makes yeah, and that's the bulk of the feedback here. I think, by the way, the space complexity improvement there is also very good. I think that's quite good to prove show as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it was good to call that out. Now, obviously, if you had called that out at the beginning, that would have been more perceptive, right? And by the way, generally speaking, whenever you're writing a function and you're making recursive calls, the first thing you should ask is, hey, would this be more efficient iteratively?
Right. Okay.
And that so that would be, I would say, a good time to catch it. Now obviously at the end if you catch it, that's still better than nothing, but just be aware that if it was tight on time, for example, and you didn't have time to rewrite it at the end, that wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
look as good as if you had caught it while writing the recursive call.
Right. Okay. That
Yeah,
does make sense.
yeah. I think both of these problems, there was a good theme where you caught your own bug pretty early on, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
for the get score, your odd case didn't have the +1.
Right.
That was a thing which you, I mean, I did prompt you to test the odd case, which you found
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, but I think both times, both problems, you had a pretty decent showing for finding finding the bug. So I thought that was well done overall.
Okay. That's good
Any
to know.
questions for me?
Um, yeah, so I guess with the umpire approach, like it's fine as is, but we just have to make sure that like I could maybe skip some steps or um like maybe not have as detailed of um like how could I maybe optimize that, I guess.
I mean, the first thing is the Empire approach is very good if you don't know what you're doing. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is if you're not confident about the problems, if you're not confident about the interview formats, that's a good way
Hmm.
to bring some structure, to force some structure onto the interview, right? But
Hmm.
that's going to have some various obvious downsides, right? The biggest downside
Right.
is if the interviewer is not taking the problem seriously. It's a warm up problem. You're meant to get to the solution
Hmm.
immediately and move on. You're going to waste
Right.
a bunch of time on that, right? And you won't be able
Right.
to. And if you aren't perceptive about that kind of difference, about the difference in what your goal is and what the interviewer's goal is, then
Hmm.
that'll look really bad, even if you come up with the right answer, right?
Right.
And so
Is there
for
a way
this,
to tell if it's a warm-up problem or not? Like should
I
I like
mean,
communicate with them
there's no
okay?
real such thing as a warm up problem. It's just that this is an easy one to make sure that you can actually do something,
Right,
and
okay.
then they'll just hand wave the rest of the problem, move on to the real problem. The issue is, right,
Right.
of course, some candidates that come in from the previous rounds and they just have no idea what's going on. And so if you
Right.
ask a hard problem, or not a hard, but if you ask a harder problem and they get
Hmm.
hard stuck, then you just wasted a bunch of time. So the
Right,
way to
okay, that
tell in
makes
this case is twofold. The first thing to tell is like what is the goal of the interviewer. So for example, if you look at the difficulty of the problem, and you say, oh, we have an hour session and this is the difficulty, then obviously this is not the bulk of the problem. This is either the beginning problem or it's a base problem that's going to be used with many follow-ups later on, right?
Right.
And
Okay, that
so
makes sense.
a very easy way to kind of start with this kind of thing is to start saying, hey, start by asking, hey, how many problems are we intending to solve today? Can you tell me that? That's a harmless question. No one's going to dock you marks for that.
Okay.
Other things you can do is like, hey, for this problem, I have a pretty strong intuition of the solution. I'm gonna just sketch it out really quickly, and you can give me feedback on that. So a lot of
Sure.
these
Yeah.
things you can just kind of short circuit by, if you're in, don't by the way, obviously do this if you're confident. If you're not confident, then don't do that. But
Right.
if you
Okay.
know what's going on, then just start by showing the interviewer that you basically know the problem, you basically know the approach immediately, and then it's up to them to adjust and prompt you accordingly to move forward, right? So it's
Right.
one of those
Okay.
cases where it's not necessarily the case that you have to drive the interview, but you have to show the interviewer that like you have it all down.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then I guess one final question I had was, with like my approaches, were those clear? Like, should I have dived into more detail for either problem or typed more or maybe getting more feedback from you before implementing? Because I think it was like very much so just like, very like I guess uh non-continuous or non like flowy notes. But like were you able to follow along or should I have like maybe typed like a pseudocode algorithm? Um
What I saw today was fine. Generally
okay.
speaking, the approach is not useful for problems that are this easy. The
Okay.
approach should, the way I would frame it for you at your level here is if
Hmm.
you know the problem immediately, like both of these problems, you should know how to implement them. Basically,
Hmm.
skip the approach and go directly into Python pseudocode.
Okay.
If it's a hard problem, like one that you don't actually know how to do, then I would actually recommend spending more time on the approach and writing out a better description of what your approach is going to be. So
Right.
again, right, you have to change the framework to kind of do what you need to do. Don't like for today's problem, right? Both these problems have no approach. You just do it. There's no
Right.
approach, right? Don't
Yeah.
waste any time on that, right? If it's a hard problem, I didn't ask you a hard problem today just because of the desired difficulty. If it's a hard
Hmm.
problem, you don't know how to solve it. That's where you can really show the interviewer that you have good fundamental skills. You're good at organization. You're good at finding thoughts and ideas, right?
Hmm.
That's when it's actually good to use the approach in its fullest. So today,
Okay.
it's hard to say.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I guess yeah. As I get to harder interviews, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much. Any other final feedback or I guess things I could improve on?
No, I mean, I think the feedback overall is that for these sort of easier problems that are intuitive heavy, I think it'll be set. I don't think this would be an issue at all. I think the only
Okay.
only thing left is testing your like deeper algorithmic knowledge.
Okay.
More classical decode problems. Yeah.
Okay.
So
That
I
makes
think yeah. So I think if you're still trying to practice, get those like get some of those in.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's all.
Okay, perfect. Well, in that case, yeah, thank you so much for all the feedback in the interview. I really appreciate it. It was very helpful and insightful.
Yeah, no worries. Take care then. Bye bye.
Thank you, too. Bye.
All right, that's that. We're gonna move on to the resume reviews now. Um, yeah, let's do that. We'll move on to the resume reviews. We're gonna see what's going on for Well, let me actually mute Discord. Where is this setting called? It's called Streamer, right? Stream. Content, social, voice, video, streamer mode. There it is. Okay. Let me just make sure the event started. Okay. Uh, Let me get this out. Okay, let's take a look. So where is my form? My form is resume review. Boom. Which of these tabs is giving me trouble? Is it this one? Yeah, there we go. Resume reviews. Resume reviews. How the hell did I open this thing? Get that thing Okay, here's the form. Put the form in the chat. All right, let's take a look. And then where's my submissions? Responses. Boom. Okay. Cool. We'll wait for some submissions to come in, and then we're going to see what's going on. In the meantime, I can look at some ones in the Discord because I see. Oh yeah. Okay, there's a couple in Discord I can go through first. Let's see. Let's go here today. All right. All right. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Copy image. All right. So this guy said, getting close to zilch for interviews. Would really appreciate any help with the resume. Aiming for new grad software dev roles. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Okay, so, all right, dates over there. Technical skills, C++, Java. Okay, got some stuff going on here. Okay, React, Node, Tailwind, Pandas, lowercase that, scikit. Okay. Vite. Okay, interesting. There's so there's some decent front end stuff going on here. C++ is the one that looks out of place. Not sure what C++ is doing here. And the fact that it comes first with no C++ frameworks makes me a bit concerned. The form doesn't support PDF stress images. Yeah, that's on purpose. I don't support PDFs because you can embed arbitrary code in there, so I don't download PDFs. I only download images, which can't have arbitrary code execution inside them. You can thank Adobe for that format, by the way. Thank you, Adobe. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, cool. This is a little while ago now, but let's take a look what's going on here. So, but this was a while. This was like a year. Okay. Enhanced Python-based processing workflows for global map generations. Selling data. Okay, nice. 6-hour runtime limit. Okay. Enhanced this for this. Okay, this is actually quite good. I think this is a very good high-level point. But there's a lot of how do you say it? Like there's some data here, to be honest, but it's a bit. I don't know. It's a bit hard to quantify it. Like for me to understand how impressive this is. Like, is this good? Is this bad? You know, like I don't know. Co-authored an ammonia research paper published in this thing, by leveraging NumPy. Process and visualize atmospheric satellite data. Okay, interesting. An ammonia research paper. I mean, I would list the paper here. I mean, you have room, or at least link to it, right? Like something, okay? Facilitated transfer 100 terabytes satellite data using computer legacy scripts. Modernize legacy. Oh, okay, to Python. Setting up developer environments, creating GitLab repositories for these comprehensive documentation. Okay, so the main issue here with this experience is that I don't know what the hell you're doing. You were here for a year, okay, and what I've understood is, so first of all, you co-authored a paper by visualizing data, okay. So you process and visualize data. Now, I don't know how much time that would take, but I'll be honest with you, that does not sound like it takes much time, okay. Over here, you weren't even in charge of the entire operation, but you were involved and you facilitated transferring some data, you wrote some scripts. Now here's the thing, right? I don't know what this is. So was transferring 100 terabytes of data hard? Because look, for me, 100 terabytes of data is like what these days 5 hard drives. You know what I mean? Like I can move 5 hard drives in like 20 minutes. Modernizing legacy scripts. How many? What's the complexity? Like, what were these scripts doing, right? So, for example, if you're saying these legacy scripts were coordinating the deployment of certain software onto the supercomputer cluster and doing some monitoring and reporting, right? That sounds okay. That's like got some complexity in it, right? That gives me a little anchor to judge your Python competency, okay? But if you're right, but if all you're saying is if you don't provide any detail about what these scripts are doing, then how am I supposed to understand what sort of work this was, right? So like this is a very, very wishy-washy kind of experience here. I can't tell what you're doing, right? The only thing that has any substance is the first point. But I still don't know what you're doing. So you enhance Python-based workflows. With what? With more Python? With NumPy? I don't know what it means to enhance these workflows, right? And if I don't understand what that means, then I don't know if this is a good thing or not. So you increase satellite data processing capacity by 300%, and that's good, and that's great, but I don't understand what that means in terms of what you did, right? So the framing of the experience is a bit off on this one. I think that's the main thing that I would change. Okay, let's go to the project. So we got some products here. I'll put dates here if possible, and the reason I put dates there is because your last experience was 2 years ago. It's gonna be 2.5 years ago, right? So basically, they don't know what you've done for the last 2.5 years. So that's why I would say dates for products is quite important here. Ricochet Rage, some stuff, team project, game UI, game menu UI, smooth transition to screens, linking buttons, functionality, start and pause same game. Okay, implemented 2D shadow system. Okay, object collision detection, boosted frames at 20 frames per second by limiting checks to expose wall tiles. I'll say this is one thing which should be in percent. Like this is one thing I would say by percent. Or if you're doing real game dev, I would say you should do this in frame time. Just as a little note there. Okay. Anyway, what's this? Okay. Improved efficiency of content analysis by developing a similarity algorithm that reduced Open Router API calls from 3 to 2 per web page update. What is this? Extension for productivity. Improved efficiency of content analysis. Open Router API. I don't know what Open Router API is. Okay, but this is a Chrome extension. It's a hackathon. Okay, so, all right, cool. Yeah, I mean, like this feels too much like. I still don't know what this thing is. So, there was. So okay. So I understand this. So there's API, whatever. There was 3 calls before. Now you made it 2 calls. Yeah, that's better. I agree. The question is, why were there 3? Why can't there be 1? Like I don't like what I'm not getting is exactly what this thing is trying to do. So I think I think the wording here could definitely be improved because I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what's going on here. And by the way, productivity doesn't necessarily imply you need to analyze content. So maybe the name can be improved as well there. Or not name, but your header description. Okay, Goodreads book ranker, Python web scraper, beautiful soup, book data, develop a scoring algorithm to rank books based on user ratings, useful for easy analysis and sharing. Okay, so look, this kind of project is kind of weak, and the reason it's kind of weak is because it doesn't really demonstrate any skills, right? So, for example, if we look at this thing, from this I can tell that you can use beautiful soup, and you developed a scoring algorithm which has no correctness ranking. Like I can't tell how good it is, right? Like there's no indication how good this algorithm is. So the second point is basically complete moot in terms of resume. It doesn't tell me anything at all. And the first point tells me that you can use beautiful soup. Like in your resume, you got to be putting good projects, and if you don't got good projects, you should be expanding on the projects which are better than the ones that are worse, right? So for example, you're using 1, 2, 3, 4, you're using 5 lines here to tell me you can use beautiful soup. That's basically what you're doing, right? But beautiful soup doesn't really have. It's not like, for example, React, where there's like a lot of a learning curve, and someone could be good or bad at React. You can't really be good or bad at beautiful soup. Like the learning curve is basically flat, and so using 5 lines to describe that you can use beautiful soup is about as effective as just putting beautiful soup over here. So you gotta be conscientious with the space use. Like this is not efficient use of space. Okay, chess. Swing app, AI implementation, chess game, Java swing, graphical. Okay. So for again, right? So this first point, you use the first point to say that you use swing. Use swing for the graphical user interface. I mean, yeah, obviously that's the only thing it can be used for, and it's interactive. Well, I would hope so. It's chess. I mean, you got to interact with chess. So what I'm getting at is, again, your first point here is about as effective as just having your single word swing over here, right? If I see that it's a chess swing GUI AI implementation and you put swing here, then obviously I obviously already know that you're using swing for the GUI. So I would say the first point here, it's got to be stronger. So stronger either in describing why swing was a great choice, what you evaluated, how swing was making things so great, or make it more general about how good the chess bot is or whatever, right? So using the first point for swing is just not a good use of space. JSON based save system, okay, that's fine. Enhance the game by increasing AI opponent min max algorithm alpha beta pruning. So okay, this sounds good. This sounds like a good point. Now again, if you're in the chess world and you're making chess AIs, right? There's a big world of that up there, of course. I mean, sure, you know what TCEC is right now, but uh, this is a great time if you're focusing the AI element. It looks like you are because I mean I'm sure the swing did not take very much time compared to making these algorithms. These are great things to talk about, right? So for example, a very easy way to talk about it is saying, hey, how much elo did the bot gain when you implemented this algorithm or that algorithm, right? So there's a lot of ways to kind of quantify in fun ways too about the efficacy of your AI system. So like I would say especially for chess, that's a really fun thing to do. I would definitely encourage you to do that. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. Next one. Uh, this person just straight up did not redact anything. Every time that happens, by the way, I go to my. I'll share the screen with you guys. Every time that happens, I go to my form and I look at my thing. Okay, this question is a required question. I confirm I have redacted all my personal information. Okay. And they just haven't. Wait, where's it? Let me go here again. Yes. Well, no, not mock interview. Yeah. Let me check the response. I'm not going to show that form here, but they checked the response, and it's still not redacted. Sometimes I wonder if people are trolling me. Well, what else could be the explanation? Anyways, okay, moving on. It really is quite incredible, by the way. Maybe you have to make them type it. Type, I have redacted my resume. Maybe that'll work. Okay, anyways. Next guy. So this guy, take a look. What the hell? Okay, I'm over here. Boom. All right, so this guy's comment is basically, so this guy's a bit bigger comment. 2024 grad, applied to over 400 jobs, only hear back from a few, doing overhaul of the resume right now, looking for feedback. Good context. Okay, so specific things we're asking about. Not sure the last two bullet points of my Sask Polytech DICE experience should be kept, reworded, or removed. Do I keep my Sask Polytech education on my resume, or do I remove it since I have a bachelor's degree now? My experience at Sask Polytech DICE is minimizing my actual development work I did there, since I cannot think of metrics or even non-metric accomplishments to showcase my actual dev work. I have worked on developing features for full-stack web apps for startups that contracted us, but nothing that I can show as being measurable aside from that one bullet. Should I add more bullets? Mention I did more dev work. If it's not a comment, okay. Also note is that I'm from Saskatchewan, Canada. Let's get put the country there in case you didn't know where Saskatchewan was. Honestly, that's kind of funny. If you feel like that might be hurting my chances with getting a job outside the province, as nobody is hiring here. Should probably also mention the latest software engineer role is an on-call volunteer one I'm doing for a local nonprofit, so I don't know if I should remove it or not. Okay, that's actually very good context. That's how everyone should be writing that shit. Okay. So, I mean, look, this is using two lines here. This is totally fine. No problem there at all. Okay, so let me look at the other questions. Okay, first let me just do a quick overview. Okay, boom. Reducing. Okay, so this is another number thing. Reducing production crashes by 100% is one of those things which is just not really a number. I would rephrase this as reduce production crashes from 10 a month to none, or like 6 a day to none. Right? That is more that is a more accurate way to represent the like this quantity. And that's the point. It's fine. Elevated code quality. So okay, that's great. Okay, so this is we're talking about. I see. 60% acceleration UI prototyping by refactoring React components. This is good. Technical guys on Neo4j, blah blah blah. For engineers, standardized knowledge across. Okay, that's a good thing to mention. NoSQL SQL database comparative analysis for engineers. Okay, so this feels like it's kind of part of that because you already have like a Neo4j over here, which I mean, guess everything is NoSQL, but so I would say this is a bit of a redundant point. Machine learning course content for C. I don't know what that is. Machine learning course content for. Okay, this is interesting. Develop content for module 3. I don't know what this. Okay, like this. I think these two might be a bit too specific. I would say I would put these two into one bullet point and just say how you were developing course content for other places or whatnot. Okay, software engineer fast. Okay, so this is the same thing over here. Okay. Design, developed, tested front. Okay, so what I would do here is actually, so since this is exactly the same thing, I would actually combine these two, right? So I'll combine them, and what I would do is specifically is I will put them, I would use a separate header. So for example, I would, by the way, I would consider doing this anyways, but put put the company at the top level, and then put your title as a subheader. That way, you can combine these two experiences into one, and then on the right, just have a different date. That way, it's a bit easier to read. It's a bit more, it's a bit better flow. And yes, I do recognize that is different in terms of it would break the continuity here. But I think the chronological order is easy to check, while having the context switch top and down here is a bit weird. Okay, so let me have a look though. Tested a mobile-focused progressive web app in a 4-person team with Google Maps API. Okay, so here's the thing. This is actually a good point, right? This is your web app we were talking about. Deploy content, that's whatever. This is whatever. Okay, so across these two experiences, obviously this is the meat of the situation. I would do whatever you can to expand on this. So I think, judging by what you've said here, there should be probably 2 points, or two, maybe even 3 if it's a lot of stuff. So for example, the design is a big word. What were the considerations here, right? So what's going on with that? What kind of design? What kind of, and you said testing here, right? What kind of testing? Even that could be relevant compared to some of your other points here about troubleshooting and code quality. So definitely expand upon the web app. That is the main thing here. Okay. Let's take a look. Blah blah. This is fine. Okay. So let's take a look. This is they got 3 projects, no dates, but okay, links are good. If you have links, by the way, links are basically implicit dates. So just put the dates here as well, I would say. And by the way, what I would do for formatting sake is I will put the link icon, the link icon that looks like a chain. I will put the link icon over here, and I make this thing, I make the text blue. And on the right, put the date. That's what I would do. Okay, let's say, so led a team of 7, develop an engaging, so adjectives I'm not really too familiar with. I don't really like adjectives. But that's fine. 100% grade. Oh, this is okay. It's like there's a teaching example showing 100 students per year of an achievable standard. Manage GitHub repo and guide the team members on Git usage and software development best practice. Okay. This is okay. This is okay. I would say, stuff like this is interesting, but it's not really kind of relevant. I think you can combine the two and talk about how you follow best practices and you help inform future students. That could be like a way you can frame that. But I would definitely spend maybe a bit more time talking about, like what tooling framework were you using in Unity? How did you make the procedural generation? Like all these kind of things I think are a bit more interesting than just your stuff was used in the future. Because one thing I gotta keep in mind is the implicit standard. Okay, so I don't actually know where you were when you developed this, but it's probably over here. Okay, and if you're saying that your project became a teaching standard at the University of Saskatchewan, that's not really a point. I'll be 100% here. Like that's just not really a point. So I would definitely focus on the merit, like the inherent merits of what you did, than leaning on the school or the teacher or whatever. Blah 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 blah. This is fine. Oh, this is interesting. So this is a web port. Okay. Yeah. So this is interesting. I'd say this is a decent kind of point. A project, I mean. One thing I have noticed is that so this point came up twice, right? It was also over. Where was it? It was somewhere above. CI/CD pipeline. Was it this thing? GitHub Actions? Yes, GitHub Actions. And you also know about linting, right? So another linting. Linting is over here as well. So you have linting twice here. I would say if you're going to talk about linting in your experience, you don't need to talk about it here anymore, right? Like linting, these kind of niceties for deployment for projects are just a formality. They don't actually do anything. So I would say for the most part, if you're just using this as another way to say that you've done CI/CD, I would say get rid of it here and keep it up above. It's more relevant. Okay. Yeah, hopefully that covers your questions there. Minimizing, yeah. So the main thing here is that this point here seems to be where most of your experience is, and you got to talk about it more. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's take a look. Yeah, this one looks relevant. Okay. All right. So this person's comment. No comment. Basically no comment. Okay. Then I'm assuming full stack dev. Who's spamming me? We're chilling. Okay. All right. So got some stuff going on here. Okay. Relevant courses here, I think are okay. I will put Dean's on our list probably over here. Kubernetes operator team. Interesting. Next node. Okay. Okay, not bad actually. Okay, let's have a look. Critical OS update address security vulnerabilities. Solution integrated 10 plus, 10K plus upstream commits. Okay. That's a good point. Comprehensively verified variadic. Okay, that's actually good. Okay, I like that. EB upgrades. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. REST API support diagnostics. Okay, that's good. Okay. Okay. Fulfill user experience requirements. Okay, pagination. Okay. Spanner database. Okay. Oh, I like Spanner. Autopilot. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like this is well put. I don't think there's any issues here. Containerized control plane, Docker, modular. Bolstering okay. Bolstering network security with Docker. Okay, that's a bit questionable, but automated all network updates for crafting custom. Okay. Container clusters, hitless upgrades. Okay, I like that. OS tree manage Ubuntu image. Okay, that's fine. I think all these are well put. Nothing really concerning here. The main thing here is like I'm looking at the dates. So you came back different times to different teams. This was I think the main thing, which is the standout here, which is that these are like every time you came back, different experience. I think this is a great thing to see. Okay, let's take a look at the projects. I mean, honestly, the project shouldn't matter with this experience, but let's take a look. Leverages ephemeral cloud instance to help developers to introduce cloud costs up to 9%. Okay, I like that. I think that's good. Design orchestrated Python Bota 3. As for transformation, okay, that's good. Full stack, okay, that's good. University agnostic degree navigator website effectively visualize the progress of a student's programs. Okay, intuitive user running tasks in JS. Okay, blah blah. Okay. Oh yeah, this is all fine. I don't think there's any issues here. This is well done. This is well done. Nothing really to say. Actually, you know what I'm gonna I don't know. I won't do that right now. I'm gonna message these people afterwards probably and let them know. Okay. Let's see. Is this one redacted? This one is not really redacted. Man, another one that's not redacted? Guys, come on. Dude. Guys, what are we doing? Come on. Um, okay. Oh, this is. I'll do this one. I'll do this one. This is an interesting question. This one is actually an excerpt from a resume. Whoa. Okay. The person is basically asking, hey, would it look better if it replaced Pinion overlay with quote unquote writing a C to x86 compiler using C++? I mean, obviously, I don't need to actually see this to say, but the answer is almost certainly yes. Again, this will depend exactly on what you're going for. So, in general, it's not always trivial to decide if you replace a project with another, but um, stuff like, for example, Chrome extensions are basically never relevant. Okay, Chrome extension, and the reason I say that is not to be mean, but it's just to say that like a Chrome extension for 99.99% of all extensions limits the scope of your of showcasing your ability very very significantly, right? Like most people, especially in students kind of thing, the Chrome extensions are either hackathon projects or they're able to do like a very very niche thing which is useful to them. But from a technical perspective, aka from a hiring slash resume perspective, it's very very it's like you have to be very conscientious to use that space for for this project instead of a different one, right? So for example, this is one of those projects which is actually a good project. Like this actually has some usefulness. It's quite good, but in terms of like employability, this has basically no information at all. In terms of like the complexity, in terms of the scope, because for Chrome extensions, for reading and parsing HTML, it's really not complicated, and it's really not kind of a good thing to put on the resumes for if you have better projects on. So to answer this person's question, absolutely, I would undoubtedly put the C to x86 compiler using C++ on here without a second thought. Okay, cool. Okay, that's all the submissions in Google today. So I'll probably leave 5 minutes in case anyone else wants to submit, and then call it here for today. I will will I? Let me think. Yeah, I think in the meantime, I will go through Discord and find some more resumes. Um, but yeah, if I don't see any more submissions in 5 minutes, I'm gonna call it here for today. Okay. Ooh, this person, is this redacted? What is this? I can't tell this person's email is actually that, or I can't tell this email is actually that, or what. I don't think it's redacted. Okay, no. Oh, I already. Yeah, I did already respond to this guy. Okay. What is his username? What the heck? Okay. Let's take a look. So I'm trying to submit, but it's not getting uploaded. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Try again, I guess. Try again. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Sort of here. You can try uploading to Discord and have someone else help you in the future. Um, let's take a look. Where's my resume? Oops. What the hell did I do? Get that out of here. Yeah, let's do that. Boom. Okay. Okay. This one, is this one redacted? No, it's not red either. Okay, moving on. What the heck is this? It is actually difficult to find a resume that's valid. What the heck? Okay, this one. Oh, what's the comment? Okay. Hold on. Okay, we'll do this one. This one looks reasonable. Okay, so this person is basically saying, this resume is trying to highlight Python skill. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, yeah. Electrical engineering, Dean's honor list, Python, proficient. Okay. So if you're okay, look, I'm usually against this, but if you're trying to really emphasize it, all right, fair enough. I don't know why debugging and these are highlighted. I would probably not highlight them. I know you're using that just to say you're proficient in them, but I would say honestly, especially if it's not Python, if you're not proficient in it, get it out of here. Okay. I don't know if I would. I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like this. I would probably. Okay, look. This is one of those things where it depends on the companies you're applying to. So again, so usually I assume that people are applying to big tech, in which case I would say get rid of this thing. But you seem to have like a very specific company or role you're applying to, in which case I say, okay, yeah, you can keep it on here if your read of the company of the hiring people are that they like these kind of things. Okay, you can keep it on, but I want to be clear that I would personally get rid of that. Are y'all using LaTeX to generate resumes? I would say, generally speaking, I mean, okay, the question is, are y'all? The answer is no. Okay, like maybe 1% of CS people are no, for sure, guaranteed you less than 1% of CS people are um are using LaTeX. I would say for people who are want to use LaTeX, I would absolutely recommend using the Jake template. To use this thing, you basically don't need to use like it is technically LaTeX, but it's so easy you can anyone can do it. I think most people though are probably just using like Word, Google Docs, that kind of thing. In reality, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, in reality, it really doesn't matter. The only difference that people would really see for most cases are ATS differences, but with a decent like Word document or Google Docs, same thing. Like the ATS is not an issue either, so it really is diminishing returns. But it does look clean, so people who care about that, yeah, I would recommend it. Okay, okay, so this guy Python Spider compiler Java. Wait, what? Okay, Java AST recursive. Okay, APS and expertise. Python like language. Develop compiler for dynamically scoped. Okay, I see. Presence awareness. Okay, documentation. Okay. Um. Okay, so one thing I noticed is that the projects is coming before the experience. I know you're really trying to emphasize Python skill, but I don't actually see any Python skill here. This is written in Java, no? So I'm not really sure why this is here. FPGA cryptography accelerator. Okay, okay. Yeah, so this just doesn't feel relevant to Python at all. I mean, you wouldn't use Python for FPGAs or anything of that sort. So I don't really understand what's going on here. Embedded software hardware subteam member. Blah blah blah. Okay. This is pretty cool. Okay. Hardware solution. Okay. Okay. I think the rest of it's fine. I mean, yeah, I think given what you have here, a Python focus makes sense. A Python focus makes sense. I'm not against that. Um, but yeah, just recognize that this is very very Python focused, and I think that's totally fine. Okay. All right, we've got a flood of couple resumes in now, so let's have a look. This one is anonymized. Okay, that means we can look at it. All right, so this person wrote, looking for first internship software eng 3 weeks ago. Changed it up from then. Should I keep the projects I'm working on, or leave them until I completed them? You should definitely keep the products on if you're working on them, but just be aware that you should only write down what you've put in past tense, or you should only write down what you've made in past tense and what you're going to make in future tense, so that way there's no confusion about what's being done. Okay, that's fine. AutoVista, projects, technical skills, LangChain, Bash, Postgres. Okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. Why does June have a period there? Also, I would say if you're using shorthand dates, you should just use shorthand dates everywhere. Okay, full stack, automobile, e-commerce platform, MERN stack, browse filter, purchase vehicles, 30% improvement in search efficiency. So I will quantify efficiency. Is that latency? Is that throughput? Is that time to first byte? Design, implement dynamic response. Okay. Okay. So again, I would quantify responsive. You know, use Chrome Lighthouse. Quantify that up. Because here's the thing: if you have a project, right, and you don't have a strong user base, it's really questionable to measure user engagement. Okay, that's fine. It's meant to be recommender. Okay. Okay. Launch point. Multi team optimize. Okay. Race conditions. Okay. 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 This is good. I like that. That's good. This is fine. Develop bash is fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Electronic store app. Java. Why is this T so screwed up? Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah, code maintainability by 30%. So I would say you shouldn't be quantifying code maintainability by percentages in projects. That's not something you can really quantify. Modification reducing order processing time. This is something which is good to quantify, and you can definitely quantify that as well. That's fine. I think you're on the right track. I mean, resume is fine. The only thing really is to just keep making better projects. Keep it up. That's all I can say. All right, what's this one? Let's take a look. Yep, looks fine. Okay. So, full stack backend front end. That's kind of a okay. Well, whatever. Convert that to 4. Okay, this is fun. Relevant courses. Intro artificial intelligence. What would that be relevant for? If you're not going to AI, don't put that in. Okay, let's take a look. Boom, 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 boom. That's all fine. Concepts. Ooh, I don't know about concepts. Okay, well, you have the technologies there. Okay, that's fine. Block interview, Minesweeper game. Seamless. Okay. SQL database query, schema design, scored game products efficiently. It's 100 millisecond response on critical operations. Okay. What? Okay, hold on. Mock interview, Minesweeper game. What is that? So, like the okay issue here is I don't know what this is. Is this a Minesweeper? Well, obviously not. You have like fucking MySQL in this for some reason. Is it a mock interview game? How do you gamify? Like, what is it? You know what I mean? So the first point is to be like, what the fuck is this thing? And then you can talk about it, because otherwise none of this makes sense. Like for my head, why are you using databases for Minesweeper? This makes no sense to me. So this is a miss. You got to clarify that. Okay. Okay. Reducing deployment times by 50%. Okay. So here's okay. I had to say this for projects. When you say this, you use Docker to improve something by 50%. It's 50% over what? Over previously what you've done? Well, I mean, that's kind of useless to compare against. So you should just, so if that's what you wanted to show, then just say you use Docker and put Docker over here, which you have done, and just get to this point entirely. Implemented Next.js API routes, handling data project processing. So this is two different points. You have a point about using Next.js routes, and you have a point about using FFmpeg. So your point about FFmpeg is useless because you put it here already. If you want to talk about FFmpeg in a point, you should talk about how you used FFmpeg effectively, some of the advanced features you used, anything interesting about it that that you talked about. Otherwise, this is literally no different than just putting FFmpeg on the header. Mindstream AI, okay. Secret attribute users, blah 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 blah. Okay, this is fine. Again, 25% versus what? Versus you previously. Don't say that. Otherwise, that's fine. Full. Okay, so this is weak experience. This is weak compared to some of the stuff you have here. So for example, if you want to talk about using RESTful APIs, expand on this point more. Expand on that point more. So expand on the Next.js routes more. I think that's more effective than cramming this thing in here. Okay. Just Canada. Okay. Yeah, I think this is fine. I think this is actually fine to put in. I would say probably I would put 1 point here probably and save the space. I think 1 point here is actually fine to show that you have some previous experience. I think that's totally fine. But I probably wouldn't put 3 points here. That's not like, for example, this is not a thing. Like, if it's 50 more customers than the average, oh, then you could talk about it. But this has absolutely no quantification. So I wouldn't put this kind of point in here. But if you at least can summarize everything into 1 point, I think that could be valuable. That's totally fine. Okay. Okay. Let's go. This guy took the. Okay, you know what? I like this guy. This guy used the old school technique. Okay, let's take a look. This guy said, "I'll be graduating this May, looking for full-time roles, mostly back-end, working SaaS. Market isn't good for SaaS. Won't be getting any. I'm not getting any calls. I don't know if it's because of my resume. Okay, well, let's have a look. Georgia Institute. Oh, this is the MSc SaaS. Okay, I like that. May 2025. That's good. What is this? Oh, okay, I see. So you're doing a master's here. What's your location? Let me look at. So this is where it's actually relevant. You are in Atlanta. You are going anywhere in the U.S. Okay, got it. All right. So you have experience here. Oh, it's in India. Okay. Um, Case of learned index, facial recognition tendons. This is recent. This is old. This is very old. This is 5 years old. So if it's 5 years old, it better be good. Um, K. Oh, not this guy got both lower cases. That's actually huge. Okay, so I would say. Let's take a look at what you've done recently. Because for a lot of Indians in the U.S., you have to have something that's a more because it's very common to have a bachelor's from India and then come here to do a master's, like a very common thing. That's totally fine, but what that means is that what you got to be leaning on right now for experience has to be more about the recent experience in the U.S. or projects or about schoolwork than about stuff back in India. But let's have a look. Okay, so blah blah. Okay. Dynamic create generation or redistributed. Okay, this is fine. Scale of backend Java 8. Don't use Java 8. I would just put Java. If it's Java anything before 8, my condolences. Spring multi-tenant SaaS. Um, Using Spring on AWS. Okay, so you didn't say how it's hosted on AWS. Are you running Spring Raw Dog on EC2? Um, Seamless performance. So lot of adjectives, not enough data. Engineer robust data ingestion pipeline Kafka, Druid store. Okay, this is good. Design implemented robust data exchange. Okay, make sure. Okay, using microservice architecture. Okay, what was the architecture? Right? Messaging framework. All right, is this okay? I'm assuming this is the same project, right? So is this SQS, SNS, MQ? Right, like there's right, like if you're leading so heavily on this thing, you gotta put the detail in. Okay. Optimize a legacy API response time, 2.5 minutes. Oh Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. I would say this is a good point to have, but don't over index on that kind of stuff. Yeah, if it's SQS, put it in. Right, put it in. Everyone knows what SQS is. It's fine. Tech stack. So tech stack I will put at the top here. I'll put over here instead. It's a bit easier to scan. Interest rate processing framework. Okay, I see. Spring batch FR state. Okay. Faster turnaround time. I don't know if you can quantify that. This is a while ago now, but okay, fine. Engage directly with cross-functional teams to articulate key operational requirements, translate those insights. That's a good point. Orchestrated creation ETL pipeline, blah blah. That's fine. We can REST API to abstract loan a queue. Okay. Um, this point's pretty weak. It's okay though. Constructed automation test suite, SMA 1,000 devices, libraries, pilot. Okay, that's 1 point is fine. 1 point is fine. Case for learned index. Machine learning driven indexing system to engage geospatial data retrieval, B trees, advanced networks. I would say if you're doing advanced, don't it's like a show don't tell. So for example, in this case, you would say what kind of neural network? Is it a convolutional neural network? For example, adversarial neural network. So I think at least you can describe it a bit more here, because otherwise it doesn't really have any information on it, right? TensorFlow, PyTorch, train, learn. Okay, this is fine. Real-time facial recognition based attendance system leveraging Python's Cascade technology. 72% accuracy rate, MySQL database. Okay, I think this is a pretty interesting product. I would keep it on. Main thing here I would say is you need. So this is December 2024. So you have ongoing projects. I think this is the main thing to kind of differentiate what's going on today. The experience is fine as is, but you can definitely combine some points, cut some stuff out. Like this point here is not that relevant. You already have an ETL point over here, right? Wait, did you? Yeah. So you had. This is not necessarily ETL. I can't really tell what it is, but you have an ETL data ingestion kind of pipeline here. You have a pipeline here. Pick one of the two, and I would expand on the one that's more impressive and get rid of the other one. Right, so I think the space usage is fine, but you could definitely move stuff around a bit to kind of optimize what's going on that front. And then I would say again, most differentiable until you graduate in May is you can make another decent project. That's what I would say would be the most leveraged. The Discord link is in the description. Okay, last one. All right. So this person's comment is looking for DevOps software engineering roles. I want to feedback my latest experience. I took up both software engineering and product management. I wanted to ensure that I highlighted my technical contributions, but also wanted to talk about my experience in product management to differentiate myself from other candidates. Okay, blah, blah. All right, let's take a look. Where are you? You are in Canada. Okay. Minor business and math, relevant courses. Okay, wait, what are you doing? You're looking for DevOps and software engineering roles. Okay, look, if you're going for DevOps and software engineering, someone's going to ask you, why do you think computational probability is relevant? Because it's not. So I would say the first things first is get rid of the courses that aren't relevant, okay? All right, so let's take a look. Oh, that's a lot of stuff here. Okay. By the way, and I don't think I've really said this before, but what I'm actually looking for here is I look at what the stuff you have here is, and then I look at what level you are from this experience, and from that I can tell you how much you're lying, basically. All right, let's move on. So, manage 6 engineers, a product manager overseeing the. Okay, wait. So what did you say? You said you want to ensure that you highlight your technical contributions. Then you should not be putting your product management experience first. That's the first thing I'm going to say. This should be last. Develop 2 fast API-based microservices recommendation service using Quadra similarity search in the user activity service, which dynamically updates user preferences based on interaction data. Okay, that makes sense. This is still new. So it's still new, so I think this is a totally, like in 2 months you do this, I think this is totally reasonable, and that's not a problem. Enhanced backend infra, implementing CI/CD Dockerized deployments, PyTest incident. Yeah, this is fine. 2 months, again, this is 2 months experience, and this is totally fine. I would say probably, going forward, make sure that again, if you're saying you want to highlight your software engineering experience, make sure that comes first. Just always make sure that comes first. As for talking about differentiate, by the way, another question you had there, I think, was you want to differentiate yourself from other candidates by having product experience. So I would be very careful about that for 2 reasons. The first reason is because, and this is actually a bias that people have, which is that people don't think that you can be equally good at 2 things as someone who's good at 1 thing. And so, even if you are a great engineer and a product manager, which I'm sure you are, I'm not doubting that, but if a candidate's coming in with just software experience, it's implicit that they are willing to spend more time on that, and so they might be better. In terms of, now, here's the thing. If you're actually good at product management, that could be actually a very, very, that could actually be a very good leverage to have. But what we're seeing here is you are a new grad. And you don't have any product management experience. You have 2 months of product management experience. So You're basically not a product manager, and so that's so that there so that that difference is not differentiable. Okay. What on insurance company, DevOps, some MLK clusters, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's good. DevOps, and this is a good opening point. Onboarding new teams, Terraform, Carpenter. Okay. Okay. You were here for a little while. This is fine. This is pretty standard DevOps kind of stuff. Yeah, it's fine. Multinational manufacturing company, Selenium scripts, Python, 30 minutes daily. Automated approval process. Okay, this is good. This is good. I like this. This is a good point to have. I would probably put this one first, to be honest. I think this is a bit more impressive. Virtual contact card application. Blah 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 blah. That's fine. What is this? Blah blah. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. So I would say, yeah. I mean, be careful about using the product management kind of stuff going on. It's okay to mention, but don't like make that your focus, because I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's a differentiator that you are necessarily looking for. So just be very careful. Anyways, that is all the resumes for today, and that is about time. So I'm probably going to end it here. Thank you, everyone, for attending.